Good afternoon, Muskegon. This is Torn Into with your host, Gregory T. Roberts. Just to let you know, if you are waiting, you have 45 days, 10 hours, and 59 minutes before you are allowed to vote. Just before I introduce my guest, I want to let you know that stocks are down, Joe. Everything is in the red right now. As far as my top 10, we have too much stuff to talk about. Next week, we will have Melvin Burns back in the studio, Tanya Roberts Ford from Georgia. My whole fact check team will be on, and we're going to go issues. We're not going to speak. We're going to actually get the candidates saying how they feel. Speaking of guests, I'm proud and honored to introduce this guy. He has a vital role in our city, and his name is Chief Jeffrey Lewis. He's a public. Well, Chief, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you want to know about yourself, about Muskegon. Know about you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. And I want to appreciate and thank you for letting me come on and have this opportunity to address, the great citizens of the Muskegon County or wherever the radio listening area is to give me this opportunity. My name is Chief Jeffrey Lewis, and I'm the Public Safety Director for the City of Muskegon, of which the Police Department, the Fire Department, and the Inspections Department is in my division. Today, I guess we're going to focus on the Police Department, and we're going to have some questions about Fire Department, and I can intelligently answer questions in both those departments. I'm on the eve of having 10 years in this position with the City of Muskegon, and it will complete about 42 years experience in law enforcement starting back in the late 70s. So I feel like I brought a lot of experience, knowledge to the City of Muskegon, and I've used every ounce of that to make Muskegon a better place. And that should be a decent intro.
All right. Chief, I really want to thank you for being here. Let's get right to it. The first question is what is the role of a police department?
Well, I think they've assumed many roles through the years, but honestly, when I started back in 1978, people referred to it as the force, the force, the force, the force. And that word itself tells you a little bit about that police department, if it's a force. And I can tell you this through my career, through the 4 decades I've worked, it has turned into a police service. We service the community. We do criminal. We do the serious felonies. We do the misdemeanor type things, and we also do a lot of just general service calls, to our public, and that's what a police service is all about. And it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We never lock the doors. We never stop responding. We're here when no one else is out there in the streets, serving our citizens for just an array of different calls for service. But that's the topical approach to what a police service should do in their community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Chief. My second question is, how many runs do you guys run, the police department run on a yearly basis?
In a calendar year, what we do is we have 2 types of calls we go on. It's a call for service where the citizen calls into our 911 service, which is used for emergencies and non-emergency requests for police, fire, and medical. That's how we do it, so we get a better unified response with all our information gathered together. It gives us history on where we're going and so on and so forth. So that's a vast majority of our calls are done through 911. But we also have a different part in the police department where we do what we call proactive policing. As you can see, you've seen officers doing park checks. You've seen them writing parking tickets. You've seen them doing traffic stops. You've seen them doing other, we call proactive policing jobs that are above and beyond what we call for service. And so between those 2 things, the call for service and the proactive policing, our police department, we have a population of about 38,000 plus in our city. We answer we actually record over 60,000 calls for service, whether it's proactive policing or calls for service in the City of Muskegon in a year.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just want to keep on going because I have a lot of questions.
Certainly.
Um, okay. Since the pandemic, what crimes do you see you guys run the most since things have been going on?
Well, it's funny when COVID first hit, it seemed like we had just a little bit of a lull. Like people just didn't know what to do, and they, I think, stayed in their houses and just kind of evaluated what the next move was going to be. But with any time that you have human behavior, and that's what I think we're experts in is human behavior, is all of a sudden, they became bored, they didn't have anything to do, whatever. But we started seeing a gigantic spike in violent crimes, especially involving youth. As you can see in the greater Western Michigan area, violence has topped the charts, shootings, stabbings, etc. Some communities have been faced with homicides. But besides for that, and just kind of downgrading this a little bit, it seemed like our larcenies had peaked. Larceny from cars, general theft type things, just nuisance, kind of unruly behavior. And a lot of times it was back to the youth once again. Because remember, school was out early. Activity programs for children and youth were canceled or postponed or rescheduled. Us in law enforcement were the first ones to see, I think the youth were impacted more from the executive orders of closure and shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
But yet at the beginning, it was just the elderly that were kind of the focus group, and the youth at the beginning were not as affected. So I think their behavior didn't change much, but they became bored very quickly, and then they hit the streets.
Okay. Now you said I was talking to some police officers, and they were saying that gun violence. Let's talk about gun violence first. That normally you would have gun violence maybe once a week, twice a week. That he said that you guys are facing gun violence every day. Is that true?
I'm not going to dispute that, and I'll tell you what we have seen is, like I said, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody that because of COVID this started. We have been addressing the gun issue in Muskegon County, different departments, different ways for, the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always been concerned about violence, because we actually, we want to end violence against, our youth and save these lives. But yes, it just seemed like since summer hit, it got to be where we'd have shots fired maybe once, twice a week, possibly. I will almost pick up the summary every day and see multiple locations in our city where, even though people weren't hurt or nothing was damaged, you will see where we had shots fired and officers responded. And the majority of the time, they do find evidence of those shots being fired.
Wow.
We don't always know the reason or why this occurred, but we do know it did occur. And
Mm-hmm.
and that has spiked. And I'm telling you, like the officer said, almost every day we're seeing, the activation of firearms in our city.
What about drug overdose, opiates?
There again, that was an epidemic numbers before this, and I can tell you this. Even last night, I believe I had 2 or 3 in the daily summary of overdoses, and which I've seen them prevalent. I don't have any scientific numbers sitting here on my desk today, but I can tell you this: I see overdoses in our summary. There again, every single week, because substance abuse has was and actually now is peaking. And if you noticed, even during the COVID shutdowns of businesses and so on and so forth, our party stores, for lack of a better term, remained open. So I think if you went and looked, there's been a lot of alcohol use and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana, recreational and medical centers have remained open. And I think there, if you went and did a study, you'd see use and abuse because they were not affected. And people turned to activities that they could do legally. Look, everybody doesn't want to, do everything that's illegal. So a lot of people turn to these substitutes to, I think, spend their time, whether it was marijuana, alcohol, or other type Schedule I, prohibited drugs. That's what they started doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we still needed activities.
Well, once again, you're watching Torn in Two. Happens every Friday at 2 o'clock. We were at Chief Jeff Lewis of Muskegon. If you want to post your questions, you can go to the Beats Facebook page and post your questions there. Chief, I want to get to the next question.
Sure.
With the with the department doing, what are you doing to train your officers so we don't have a George Floyd incident here?
Well, let's start out like this. Thank God we have never had any type of incident like that today going backwards. And yes, we have been concerned about any time we have a negative event with a citizen just like that. And George Floyd is not the first by any means. I think my first real time I paid attention was Rodney King. That was last century in the early 90s. That struck a nerve with me because that's when things were changing, but they became more media driven. So that being said, they're going to, in my 10-year tenure I've been here, we have concentrated. We're not starting because of George Floyd. I don't think we even started because of Rodney King. It started because we see these things. The community demands change, or they are just through their complaints, we can see they're not happy with our service. And so us in law enforcement, and I'm speaking for the vast majority of chiefs in this state, because I know what kind of state of Michigan we have as far as our licensing and the associations that guide our police services. We are concerned. We're deeply concerned. Our department started the rewrite of all our policies and procedures a couple of years ago. Our commissioners, who are very dedicated to public safety in the city of Muskegon, authorized me over $40,000 to professionally, legally vet and rewrite our policies and procedures so that they were in line with the 21st century, were in line with what's going on around the country, and they were legally vetted. That means that through case law, through actual cases, not just George Floyd, not just Rodney King, but through all these cases that came along, we could sit here probably the next 15, 20 minutes naming the cases. But because of that, law and procedures and policies came out of those events. You know, post-event, they were critiqued and then started giving us some guidance. So we're in the midst, and we're almost concluded in rewriting all our policies, procedures. And if you're familiar with the 8 Can't Wait, I did a presentation about a month ago. You know, I analyzed it. We either meet or exceed those, not exactly word for word, because remember, we have to follow the companies and the attorneys as far as wording goes and so on and so forth. But I felt that we met and exceeded all those 8 Can't Wait, which there again, that means the officers get that information and that guides them when they're on the street. That is so very important. You know, that's going on. Along with that, the state of Michigan is about 4 to 5 years ago started what they call accreditation. And they're trying to standardize law enforcement across the state. And why that's important is so that, let's say that, for instance, Muskegon Heights had a accredited police department, and they were doing legally correct, vetted procedures, okay? And the community got used to that. Then they crossed over to Muskegon, and I was doing it like 1980. They would instantly see a difference and go, why is it so different? That's why accreditation came along, so that all the police departments would be standardized or operate on, you know, legally found and policy procedures. So the citizens would feel that they would know they're dealing with a professional service, and we've been through policy procedure. That's what's guiding us. But what's more important is our training. The state of Michigan right now requires firearms training. There's a small classroom portion and then go on the range. Well, that's it. Our department, Muskegon, when I came here, we adopted a minimum of 20 hours of in-service training. Some officers get a minimum of 20. Some get up to over 100 or 200 hours of training. It depends on what classes or courses they go to. And let's go back to that 20 hours for a minute. Like about a year or two ago, we did 21st century policing, which was mixed with diversity training, how to operate in the street, how to talk to people, and so on and so forth. Every one of my officers got that. That's how important we felt it was. So we train a minimum of 20 hours a year, which is not required. We are going for accreditation, which I believe is going to happen in February of 21, which is just a few months away. And our policies and procedures have been rewritten so that they are not from 15, 20, or 25 years ago. They are current, and this new one is competency-based. It's also evaluated, critiqued, and changed real time. It just doesn't sit there for 20 years and we keep using the same, policy procedures.
Speak now. I want you to speak to me as a chief when you
Sure.
were watching that George Floyd incident. As a chief, how did that make you feel?
Well, there's two ways I look at it. I can agree with everyone in the media, or I can look at it as a chief. I looked at it, I critiqued it. And one thing I noticed off the bat is I watched very carefully the officer's behavior. And what astounded me with the behavior was, if you watch them, they appeared to be acting like they do every day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any overt attempt to completely commit crimes. They were acting like what was accepted at that police department. And that's what disturbed me, because it was a mundane approach. We all saw what the officer did to Mr. Floyd, and we know the result now. When I saw it, we knew that was wrong. But I'm telling you, it probably went on time and time again. That day, something went terribly wrong for that officer. And that's why we're in this predicament now, because I don't believe they were trained that way. I believe the culture put them in that position, and that's how they operated every day until they got challenged, until this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Look now what has gone on since that terrible day.
Right. Hey, sis, I see you from Georgia. We'll have you on next week. The next question is you hear about defunding the police. That's a big question going on right now. How would that affect Muskegon?
Well, I think I would call that like some title words, defunding the police. I think the police service is just as important as our Department of Public Works, our finance department, our clerk's office, our fire department, all the departments. We perform a very necessary service. I
Okay.
believe that ours is funded properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and actually we're down 11 positions right now, which is pretty disturbing, because it is affecting how we can operate on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's ways we can overcome it temporarily, but it is a problem right now. But I don't think they really mean to stop funding a police department and make it go away. I think the spirit of this is, and I do agree with this, that there probably are things, and other departments have done it, where civilians can actually do things that police officers are assigned to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to remove several officers from desk positions, for instance. These were positions, or just other positions that civilians could do, and I put my licensed, trained, certified officers on the streets to serve our citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. We are not overstaffed here. If anything, we are understaffed, but we can operate the way we are now, and we have to spend our funds properly, which I think we do in the city of Muskegon. But I don't think, even if you ask the biggest opponent of us, I don't think they want to see us go completely away.
Okay. Do you see at sometimes that in the future, that on runs, that maybe you may have a social worker instead of the police department responding? You talked about youth getting in trouble, that maybe we need to take money to invest in activities for them so we can be proactive.
Oh yeah, I agree. Let me answer the first question that you posed me at the beginning, because that was an excellent question. We actually are doing that now in a variety of situations. We have civilian teams assist us, whether it's medical, whether it's mental health, a fire call, or whatever, and other type police calls that we now have citizens helping us. But this is the important part I want the citizens to understand. Many times when that therapist, that mental health worker comes on the scene, they want assurances that the scene is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the beginning, the police officers are trained. The equipment we wear, I feel, is necessary. The way we talk to people, our verbal skills, all these things are important because what we're trying to do is make a scene, whether it's a crime scene, a health scene, you name the scene, we're trying to make it safe so that others can come in. And they do. And I'll tell you, if you talk to any mental health worker, therapist, social worker, you name it, they will ask us, even with fire and medical, they ask us to go to the scene first before they come in. And we
Right.
always accommodate them and
Right.
work with them. We don't have to do everything, nor do we want to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we do appreciate their back end assistance and follow up. It's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely necessary. Even on our criminal sexual conduct cases with the youth, we have trained forensics interviewers that are not police interview those children. After we've done the initial, they come in behind us and help us. So that is going on. I don't envision, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation if therapists and social workers really wanted to go on patrol and respond first. I'd like to get their, I guess, opinion on that or what they think about that. Because the ones I've talked to, they don't think that's such a good idea to be the first responder.
Mm-hmm. I keep hearing a word that you keep referring to over and over, that is service.
Well,
Talk about that.
yeah, I'm hammering that home because I don't, when I hear enforcement, we're the police force, and these to me are kind of a highly charged terms. I want the citizens to understand that when I talk to my officers and I refer to us, we're a service. We're here to serve them. Now, granted, we make arrests. People don't like that. We can write people tickets. I understand that. But the vast majority of what we do, we are servicing. We are actually helping people, and we really do. Sometimes the media, and it's not their fault. It is not. They show us on our worst days. And believe me, people in law enforcement, when we see those on national media, those cases, what do you think I do? I just cringe because I know the work that I do each and every day to serve our citizens. I know what kind of police department we have, what kind of service we try to provide. And it makes me cringe when I see that because I know it's like Lake Michigan. If you throw a ball in the water, the wave's going to hit the shore. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
care how far away it is, we're going to feel that vibration, that ripple, that wave here in Muskegon. And it hurts my heart because I know the work that like our prosecutor, DJ Hilson, our
Mm-hmm.
African-American ministers such as Pastor Bennett, Pastor Garrett, Pastor Burrell, I can name a bunch. All the work we've done for social justice and in our community, not just City of Muskegon, in Muskegon County and a greater area. And to see that, it puts us back. It puts us on our heels because we have no control over
Mm-hmm.
what happens in Minneapolis, St. Louis, Baltimore. It makes your heart hurt from the bottom.
And it's a good learning tool for you guys to what is correct or what is incorrect.
I would halfway agree with that. I just wish we could head it off the past and not have to go through a devastating incident like Mr. Floyd or the case in Ferguson just to learn something. I wish we could have learned it and implemented it before we had a death of a citizen or an officer.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a pie in the sky attitude, but it's great when you learn the school of hard knocks, and I'd prefer not to go to that school.
Now I hear what you're saying, and then you said that the media catches you on your worst days. What are you guys doing to have the media or the people see the police on the good days?
Well, that's up to us. And I'll tell you, I do reach out, and I'll tell you, my hat goes off to some of our TV stations and media stations in Western Michigan that do forward some of the good stuff we do. You'll see officers, for instance, around Christmas time, giving away gifts. You see them stopping a car and giving $100 to the driver, whatever, and surprising them. And, but more importantly, I've had our officers we had a case one time, we had an officer go to a break-in. The woman was elderly in her mid-80s. She was devastated by the break-in. She wasn't missing anything. We never saw the suspect, But when the officers took the report and went to leave, she was in tears because her door was damaged and
Ah.
had no way to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
The officer told her not to worry. He went home. He got off his shift. He is a carpenter. That's his second trade. And he went over and he fixed the woman's door jamb and door. Paid for everything. That's only one case, but that's an example of what's in the hearts of a lot of our officers.
Yeah, which brings us to the question. That is a good analogy.
Yeah.
What are you doing to make sure that the police department and the community works together?
Well, like I said, I'm very active. Like just doing this program today, I'm so happy I had the opportunity because I can reach out. But you know that I'm a board member of the Social Justice Commission that's super active here in Muskegon County and has been the entire decade I've been here. And it's a big group. When we have our meetings, it's over 30 people in there. And I'm telling you, we have done things like we've done events like Community Mixer through Rotary. We had Impact, which is enhancing police and community trust. We've done that 3 years. This year, COVID messed it up. We're doing all these things to reach out to our community. And I think it's working because I hear stories. I meet people. I actually can physically touch these people. I talk to these people. My officers do. Our officers participate. One thing we sprang into action is what to do when stopped by the police. I even got these things, and I'll give them out to anybody. I'll give you a 500 at the radio station. They're a little packet that goes in your glove box. It gives you 6 points how to act on a traffic stop when an officer comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Read those just 6 points. It talks about cooperation, communication. That's it. Not confession, just cooperate, communicate. And when the officer sees that little packet, there's an instant visual communication like, wow, this person's already talked to the police. And the reason we want to do that, so when you have that transaction with that police officer, it takes that negative emotion, that hyperness out of the equation, and you can think and operate properly without making it worse than what it is. I'm telling you, this is a fact, Greg. I used to stop people for like what they call a civil infraction. That means you can't go to jail no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a minor misdemeanor, which means you're not going to jail no matter what. And before I knew it, they'd done something and committed a felony in my presence, whether they're going to fight me or drive away in their car. And they took a simple thing and turned it into a felony. And we see that in Muskegon County a lot. And once again, that hurts my heart. Why are we taking a civil infraction and turning it into a felony?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's it. Back to the beginning. They're not certain what to do when they get stopped by the police because they probably think it's way worse than what it really is, and they act out. And that's why we got to get to the youth especially and help them understand what's going on.
So what do you say to the youth? Because the conversation with me or anyone that I coached or whatever is my conversation is different when you're pulled over by the police.
Mm-hmm.
You better act accordingly. Hands up. Don't make any certain moves. Answer questions. I mean, that's the conversation that I have to have in my house because I don't want nothing to happen to my child.
Exactly.
And so how do we address that now? I see we got a lot of people that bringing up some interesting stuff, like the Kids and Cops program. But I want you to go back and address that my conversation is different in my household than other households.
Right. Well, going back to being, we're training our officers to walk up and say certain things right off the bat. It's called a script because we know that people can get hyped up very quickly when the Q&A starts happening. Like, I stop you, I walk up, I go, Greg, give me your license. And that's all I say. And what are you going to say back? Why are you stopping me? See how the questions start?
Yeah.
First I go, hi, sir, how you doing today? Hey, listen, I stopped you because you're going 5 miles an hour over in that construction zone. What I'm going to need today, I'm Officer Lewis. I'm going to need you, if you have your license and your registration and proof of insurance, can you help me out there?
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel, Greg? I just stopped you. How did you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Were you somewhat okay with it? You knew who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
You know I stopped you, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked you stuff that you probably expected me to ask for in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of this Q&A going on, like, hey, what are you doing? I'm stopping you. And you go, why? I'm not telling you. Give me your license. And we start arguing. We see stops like that, and then you, the driver, become escalated, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're there to de-escalate. If I tell you why I stopped you, that's going to probably make you feel better. Versus you go, God, why did he stop me?
Right.
My license is expired. Well, I can't see that. And then you have, a good conversation, so to speak. And
Right.
so that's our big thing that we want to do is get people to de-escalate, to settle down and just listen. You don't have to. I've heard all kinds of things like 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Just come up and just be relaxed. Listen to what I'm saying. Take a breath. And that's why if you get that packet that we offer, you can put your registration proof of insurance in that in your glove box, and then you're prepared. And Greg, there's times I stop people and they were so upset. Being trained, I'd go, all right, listen, Mr. Roberts, here's the deal. You seem pretty upset. Let me go back to my car for a minute. I'm going to get some stuff here. When you find that stuff, just stick it out the window. I'll walk back up. Do you know what that did to people? Gave them a chance to reset. Yeah, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
worry about my officer safety or anything. You could go, oh man, okay, hang on now. What did he say here? You have time to think. Yes, right. You want my register? Let me get that on my glove box here. Yeah. Okay, let me get this. Let me get my license. And you have time to take a breath and regroup. That's what we want, because a lot of these traffic stops, 99% of them are just minor traffic violations. One of the officer's basic duties.
Now we have why don't we bring back the Kids and Cop program? That's a very good question. Thank you, Marlon.
Yeah, I'm writing that down just so you know. I'm taking some notes here.
Okay, because that was a good program to introduce the cops to the community and meet each other and talk and stuff like that. That was a great program. And the kids collected the cards of the
Yeah.
police officers, and it was a good way for them to meet.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Now we have other programs in place right now that are similar to this. We're doing, one thing we responded to, we had a death here a couple of years ago on the last day of school. That's why we created the last day of school event. And we have done that now 3 years in a row. And since we did that event, we did not have one injury of any child in the city of Muskegon Heights or our city when we had activities for them on the last day of school.
Mhm.
And that was funded by private dollars, just so you know, not taxpayer money. We have a very generous donator in the city of Muskegon. He gave money to Muskegon Heights and us to have a couple 3-hour program at the last day of school. And I can tell you this, man, the last we had over 300 kids participate in the city of Muskegon on the last day of school.
Good. What do you guys? What do you feel about body cams?
As we had that conversation a little bit ago, here's the deal. Our city, when I came here, and I really support the system. It's called L3. L3 was a system. It has a dash cam. We have rear cameras. Our interview room is also set up with L3 that we record the audio and visual of all the interviews in the Muskegon Police Department. And then we also have body mics that we carry with us to record all the audio on stops or whatever. When the body cam came along, the first generation, I was less than impressed with it. I've said this in other public forums. They were expensive, and they just weren't providing what I felt the community was asking for. And so, we are looking at a brand new system that will be out in the spring of 2021. We're working on it now. And I think we'll have dash cams in our cars, and I will be able to certify and back them up with the newest technology. I was less than impressed with the first generation because we never had an event where we wish we'd had a body camera, even though I've got 5 of them. We've tested and evaluated them, and there was some inherent problems with them. And I certainly wasn't going to show up at a commission meeting or go on a radio station, see how great they were, because they weren't that great. We have the great dash cams, and they do work. We also have the mics on our belts. We have the rear cameras, and our system was set up that you cannot alter or dictate the media that's in them. They wirelessly download. Where our current body cameras, if me and you got into an event, okay, I did something wrong, and all I had was the body cam. Our current body cams, all the information is in that little box. So between me and you having our confrontation and me getting all the way back to the station, something could happen to that box. Do you know that? So where's
That's
the
not
media?
good.
I could lose the box. And just
Right.
I was running after Greg, and my box is gone. How do I find it? You know what I mean? Because the new cameras will not be like that. They will be just like my current systems that downloads once it goes into a vault, so to speak, and I get near what they call a point of presence. It will be wirelessly downloaded, and the new ones are going to be like your cell phones. You know how they stream your data, through the airwaves. That's
Right.
where that's the technology I want. That means as I'm recording you, if something happens, at least what happened up to that point, I have, right? I have. And so if the device itself gets damaged, broken, wiped, cleaned, busted, you name it, I have the data before that. I didn't lose like 9 hours of data that was in this little box that was attached to my uniform.
Tanya Roberts Ford says, do you feel police officers should require more training? For instance, correct me if I'm wrong, it takes 800 hours to become a police officer. It takes 1,500 hours to become a cosmetologist.
Okay. Well, one thing I'm going to kind of counter that somewhat. Almost all our police officers have an associate's degree, okay, usually in some type of educational process. So that in itself is about, you're talking that's 62 credit hours. We're talking hundreds of hours invested there. Then they go to the police academy, and the police academy is, oh my gosh, it goes on for 16 weeks, 16 times 50 hours. That gives you the hours of that. And then when they come to our police department, we put them through an 800-hour training program here. So they have their formal education, they have their police academy training, and then they have their 4 months in our intensive program. And then the next 8 months of that probationary period, we observe and watch that officer to see who they are. That's what we use. So that's the training for a police officer, that goes in there. And also, what people don't understand either is every single police officer that comes here goes through a full psychological battery of tests to see if they're psychologically ready for this job, that they would be a good fit for this job, that they could actually function. And just so you know, a lot of our really good candidates do not make it. They do not pass the psychological examination. How many other, disciplines? Do nurses all get psychologicals? Do teachers all get psychologicals? Police officers do. They get the full battery, the 8-hour comprehensive psychological, and must pass it. It must be recorded. When they change jobs, whatever, all that's looked at.
Okay, stop there. Let's take a break. Man, just great conversation. You're listening and watching Touring the Two with our guest, Chief Jeffrey Lewis. We'll be back in a couple minutes on 103.7 The Beat. We see
America, land of the free. It's at the core of who we are. Freedom. The freedom to live without fear, to drive through all 50 states, to sleep safely in our own beds, the freedom to jog where we please, to watch birds in the park, to wear a hoodie, the freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because no matter your religion, gender, disability, age, race, all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter.
An unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of
latest
Ferguson,
on that police
Missouri.
killing of a black man in Atlanta, Rayshard Brooks. It has happened again. Shot in the back as he fled the scene after officers tried to arrest him.
New developments in two high-profile racially charged police shootings. We also know that young black men continue to be fatally shot by police in the United States, and they involve the deaths of 2 black men in separate incidents.
After the killing of a black man by an Atlanta police officer.
A fatal police shooting. The
grand jury in New York City has refused to indict yet another white police officer said to have killed an unarmed black man.
I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, man.
Well, you got him down, man. Let him breathe, at least, man.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe shit.
No.
I can't move.
I've been wiping the whole body, man.
Get on the ground!
One of my homies died. I'm
about to die to see.
How many more of my family needs to be murdered before enough is enough?
It's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
How many weren't filmed?
We all bleed the same color. All lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
No one is free when others are oppressed.
Get to know me before you hate me.
I'm tired.
And welcome back to Torn in Two on 103.7 The Beat. You're here with your host, Gregory T. Roberts. And we had to make a little correction because my bald spot was too bright, Chief. So we had to change. I wanted to say hello to my wife. Anthony Miller said, how does a person get a marijuana charge off their record now that is legal? I don't know, Chief, if you can address that or not.
You know, on that one, you know, our city is a champion of trying to get these charges off people's criminal history. I think the place I would start is I would start with a court that affected the charge. I think they can give you real-time information how they're going to start expunging those records, because, you know, they're held by the state of Michigan. They're not held by the city of Muskegon or any community. Those are done by the state police, held at Lansing. But I think the effective court, the district court or circuit court, that actually place that on your record would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back and address one of the things you were talking about from the question from Tyler Roberts. Being a firefighter, I can address that the training that we received was more than 800 or 1,000. It was my first year. We called it Hell Year. It was that and more. And after the training and after the certification, you had to do hours and hours. Mm-hmm. Plus we trained every day. Mm-hmm. I can remember jumping on frozen ice to practice ice rescue, looking like a buoy in that orange suit. So I can confirm that what you're saying is true. Now, I'm a guy of many hats. As you see, I have my firefighter mug now, and I want to talk to you about a couple items as you work with the fire department as well. Just recently, Muskegon had to borrow a truck from Eggleston and Muskegon Township, which we want to thank them for doing. My question is why and how did we get into that predicament?
Greg, I can tell you right away. Here's the situation. That wasn't the first time, and it's not unheard of around the state where departments this happens. A basic fire apparatus, the ones for the city of Muskegon, a new one is about $600,000. So that is not chump change. That's expensive. Okay. Here's the deal: is the NFPA standard, which I know you're familiar with. You know, that's the National Fire Standard. Their guidelines are pretty strict, and we do the best we can. About 70 or 80% of the departments in the country cannot meet the guidelines of the NFPA standard, which is no big deal. But we try. We don't always meet it. I looked at our fleet this morning. I sent a comprehensive report to our manager this morning about our trucks. And I'm telling you, this is how it works. We, about 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, sold one of our reserve trucks because it just was not working anymore. So we sold it. We had put in the budget to get a new truck, and we were going through that. And we went through all our trials and tribulations with our budget. And then we're in 2020. This year was going just fine until COVID-19 hit. Okay. We made some adjustments. We lost 3 firefighters due to funding back in May. We are planning on hiring them back.
Okay, good.
Currently have 2 positions we're filling immediately. That's 5. And then on a long-term contract agreement, we're going to bring 3 on top of that. So we're going to fill 8 more positions. So we're at 23 now, add 23 to 8. You basically are going to get 31, I would be 32 firefighters. Okay, but today we're at 23. Okay.
Do you think that's enough to cover the city? When I was a firefighter, we were like at 45, I believe.
Yeah. Well, here's the situation though. I don't know what it was like back, Greg, when you were back there, what you were all doing. The vast majority, 70, 80%, 85% of all our calls now are medical. They're medically driven. Our department went from a medical first responder status, which I think you were, right, Greg? You were a medical first responder?
I was EMT and firefighter.
Okay. Yeah, we've upped the ante now that everybody has to be EMT at the City of Muskegon. And eventually we'd like to see all paramedics here, and that's a whole other story. So we're all now required. It's not medical first responder anymore. We're an EMT department because we're getting more advanced in medical, because that's where our bread and butter is. That's where our calls for service lie. But we still have to be a fire department. And with code changes and things like that, a lot of the new stuff has fire suppression, new buildings, so on and so forth. But that's good news. Here's the bad news is we're an older community. We still have a lot of wood structures from the 30s, 40s, and 50s that catch on fire. We currently have 3 stations open, and our newest engine I purchased in 2016, that just went in and was in the shop for over 3 weeks. And here's why. The wrong antifreeze by a mechanic got put in there. During COVID and how slow the shops are, parts, workers, so on and so forth, we're operating under a whole different system as COVID-19. We're not getting the service like we did before and I can talk about that for another hour. But anyways, they had to test this fluid and send it out, only to find out we had the wrong antifreeze in the truck. So 3 weeks later, we got our truck back. We could have drove it. We didn't want to take the chance of wrecking a $600,000 engine. So that's back in service. We had another engine, number 25. That one was purchased right around, I think, 2011 or 12. And so that's relatively a new fire truck when they're $600,000. That truck, was determined that it was a lack of mechanical oversight, which caused that, and so now the truck is being fixed. So it wasn't abuse or use or failing to maintain the truck. It just broke. The parts for that, they're not even sure where they're at. Because a lot of those parts come from all over the world. Our supply chain is down. I have our dealership and our local repair shop looking everywhere for the parts we need. And same with our ladder 41. So right now we are borrowing 1 truck. We just recently purchased a truck from Saginaw Township. They were changing out one of their trucks. At it, we felt it was appropriate as a reserve engine. And you know what that term means, right, Greg?
Right.
But you could take your reserve and put it front line for a minute. Because remember, I started this conversation saying that we got rid of one of our reserves.
Right.
That will come in to fill that position. And then our other reserve, which was a truck, probably when you were here. Do you remember the 94 Freightliner? Yeah. That's sitting in the bay. It's operational, but my fire staff deemed it not be reliable. You know what that means. It works. You're a firefighter. Do you want reliable equipment?
You have to have reliable equipment.
Right. So that one's going to be replaced. Once we get the 2 reserve engines in the shape that they should be, we're going to be in good shape. If a frontline engine breaks, which they do, you have time to use your reserve engines until those get fixed. And I'll tell you what, I've been here for 10 years. I've never seen it take 8 weeks, 6 weeks to fix trucks. You ever see that before? I've never seen that.
No. It is definitely different times. Now, with the 23 firefighters, I understand that you've had a lot of people come, receive training, and get better jobs. How do we keep these firefighters in Muskegon?
Oh, man, that's another tough question. We've been talking to the union all summer long about this. Their negotiated starting wage right now is just too low. It's too low. If you figure out the hours they work, it comes out to about $10, $11 an hour. Hey, and I'm not saying that.
Not good, man.
I'm saying that people that make $10 or $11 an hour, I'm not saying that's bad, but for a firefighter and all the training they go through and so on and so forth, the commitment, the days, the weekends, the 24-hour shifts, and even what they do on their job, the pay is not appropriate.
No, that's brutal. for a firefighter someone going into a burning building making $11 an hour is not a good thing.
Right. And we hired, my God, I've hired over 25 firefighters since the beginning of 2019. We just had 2 leave in the last couple of weeks, and one of them decided, hey, the pay's just not good enough. We're working on that. There's no argument here. We're working on that. We got to retain these people. And then with the advent of the defined contribution retirement program, it's not like the old one that you're used to, the defined benefit. And so that has deterred a lot of people to come into the service, and they leave because they try to find a better situation for them and their family, which I can't blame them, you know. But we've got to step it up, and there's no argument there, and we're working on it.
Chief, what do you say to it's not lastly, because we still got some time, but I was a person that walked through Central Station as a young kid. As children, you dream of being a firefighter or a police officer, and going through Central Station as a kid inspired me to be a firefighter, and I was able to obtain being a firefighter without receiving the training, and the city put me through that training as I worked. What can we do to help other kids fulfill their dream that work, live, look like me, or look like other people in the city of Muskegon?
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things we're doing, but we're missing one major piece. First of all, every year we do our fire safety week, and we have the open house, and we have hundreds of kids come through. We really, really try to reach out and touch them, and give them the fire helmet, talk to them. They get to do all kinds of things to get that interest peaked. That's the first thing we do. Second thing, we just did it, and we had a fight against COVID on this one. We ran our first public safety academy for the kids from Muskegon and Muskegon Heights. And they came in even during COVID, and they learned about all the safety things to do because of COVID, but then they got to spend a whole day at the fire department, and then we had them work with the police and fire and medical. And let me tell you something, if I could get a few of those kids to talk to you and for them to tell you how they felt and what they thought after that day, I know we made a huge impression on those kids. It's just a start. But here's where we're missing that you said. Right now, we don't have anything set up to take a kid from the city of Muskegon and kind of lob onto them and then send them to the fire, firefighter 1 and 2. We don't have anything like that. And that's the missing piece. Because if they can't get certified here, get licensed here, they're not going to go out to Dalton and become a volunteer firefighter living here. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the part we're missing. We have to figure out a way to get whether it's a fire intern program, a cadet program, or whatever, get them in here. They start working around the station, and then we send them to firefighter 1, firefighter 2, the medical first responder class. Then they get the EMT once they get in here.
And hazmat 1, hazmat 2, and everything else that goes on with that. Exactly. How many black police officers and firefighters do you have right now?
Well, let me start with fire because that's the easiest. We have 1. And, we lost all our African-American firefighters. Major went out, Ollie, Curtis, Jimmy Matthew. I mean, they all left. They retired. They had great careers. We have 1 now, and we really didn't have much in the pool at all, which is disturbing. The police, we've had not a great, nothing to brag about, believe me, but we've really concentrated on diversity in our police department. And right now, I believe we have 7 African Americans. When I came here, we had 1 or 2. We have 7, but that is the success part of our story. But we also have a developmental program in the police department that we never had before, which is helping us diversify. Mm-hmm. But kind of the backside of the story, we've offered quite a few jobs to other African American like police candidates, but they go other places. And I'm not making an excuse. I'm just telling you because once again, it's hard to compete with Grand Rapids, Walker, Kent County and stuff, and we lose our diverse group to them because those people want best for their families and their lives too, and they'll go to the state police or they'll go to Kent County or they'll go to the feds because they have better benefits and pay.
Question now, do you guys have like a police board or something that's going on with the public that Do you talk, or do you have anything like that going on?
We absolutely do. Like I said, we talk a lot through the Social Justice Commission, but that's social justice here in Muskegon County. But our city, when I came here, we have what we call a community police review board. So when we have complaints about our police service, and those complaints are not satisfactory to the complainant, they can appeal or request that the police community advisory board or review board look at that complaint, and we go in front of that citizen board, and then we present our case, the citizen presents their case, and then I show them what I did. So that board is very transparent and sees kind of on the side how the police department is operating, especially when it comes to complaints.
What would you say, as we're getting ready to wrap up, what do you want to say about what do you want to accomplish the rest of 2020, 2021?
Well, my first and foremost, I do not want any type of negative event between our citizens and what we saw up in Minneapolis, period. That's our number one thing. We want to have a good relationship with our citizens. And I'll tell you, with this protest and everything going on, our citizens have been over the top, understanding, working with. We've had our protests and our, times we all met down at Hackley Park and over at the county building, and we got it out of our systems. We vented what's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud of our citizens. We did it. It took hours, but we did it. Nothing was damaged. No one was hurt. I'm so proud of our citizens because we're different. We've done something.
They did a great job. Everybody did a great job.
They did. So, on that note, I'd like to see us, keep on the road. It doesn't mean that we cannot change police service, that we can't challenge our police authority and make it refined and make it better. It has nothing to do with that. It's just how we do it. And it's through peaceful protest. It's more than that. It's pressuring our commissioners, pressuring the police chiefs, pressuring our officers, demanding excellence. And I think we do that here. And I think that the prosecutor's office, I think the sheriff's office, the police agencies have responded to that voice because we hear it. I think it would be hard to respond to damage. I don't think it'd be numb to us. You know what I mean? We hear your voice loud and clear.
I think you said something very important, that people that you have to press and push. It makes no sense to be down in police. It makes no sense to be that low in firefighters. It makes no sense to have to borrow trucks. You had trucks in reserve.
Right.
We need to push. The last question is, how can the Citizens Review Board get subpoena power? And that's real quick.
Well, they're talking about subpoena power, and I think we should have another session on that. From my point of view, I'm not sure that would be helpful, especially in our situation, because, and I'll tell you why, we give our review board members the video, the audio, the reports. We then type up what the officer statements are. We give it to them. We send the officers there to talk and to have an open conversation. Subpoena is like, now I could take the Fifth Amendment, and it becomes an adversarial relationship. I want to have a good relationship with our board, that we tell them the truth when they ask us.
Right.
All that. There's no forcing. Hey, the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how. I have taken bad, negative things to our social justice where our department has made a mistake, and we work through it. We didn't hide it, but we work through it. And we get their input. I give them my input, and at the end we have like a resolution we can live with. We don't always agree with it, but at least we understand what happened, and like you said, how we're going to fix it. Because we've had our moments here in Muskegon, right?
Right. Chief, last question, and we got 30 seconds. Are you in favor of a national registry for a police officer, so you don't have a bad police officer get fired from, say, here and go somewhere else and get a job?
Absolutely. We already have a registry, a license system in Michigan. The other 49 states should adopt exactly what we're doing. I can get any information on any Michigan officer whenever I want.
Thank you, sir. You've been listening and watching Chief Lewis. I want to thank you on behalf of the people of the city of Muskegon. Thank you so much, sir. And will you come back?
Absolutely, Mr. Robertson. Thank you and the community for giving me this opportunity.
All right. You've been watching Touring the Tube. Show happens every Friday. I really want to thank the chief. He is the one thing about the chief. We've been on good sides and bad sides, but he has always come and we've always addressed issues. And I want to thank him for that. I want to thank PA, who just did everything to make us look great. Lady J, wow. Thank you. My wife, who has to sit and watch me listen to all these programs. Guys, you have exactly 45 days to vote. This is Touring the Tube, your political show that happens every Friday on 103.7 The Beat. We'll see you next week with a full slate. Talk to you later.
An unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of
latest
Ferguson,
on that police
Missouri.
killing of a black man in Atlanta, Rayshard Brooks. It has happened again. Shot in the back as he fled the scene after officers tried to arrest him.
New developments in two high-profile racially charged police shootings. We also know that young black men continue to be fatally shot by police in the United States, and they involve the deaths of two black men in separate incidents.
After the killing of a black man by an Atlanta police officer.
A fatal police shooting that...
Grand jury in New York City has refused to indict yet another white police officer said to have killed an unarmed black man.
I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, man. Bro, you got him down, man. Let him breathe, at least, man. I can't breathe. I can't breathe shit. No. I can't move. I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get on the ground! One of my homies died. I'm about to die to see.
How many more of my family needs to be murdered before enough is enough?
It's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
How many weren't filmed?
We all bleed the same color. All lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
No one is free when others are oppressed.
Get to know me before you hate me.
I'm tired.